So yeah, so I was so anxious to start that I forgot this. Annette, could you shortly introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, and hello. Welcome to everybody, and I'm very happy and honored to be part of your summer talks, Wilma. I'm coming to it actually from a slightly different context in a sense. I'm a lawyer by training, so I'm coming to the whole thing as a lawyer, but my husband would say I'm a born again human. So I'm now a risk management. I have been actually head of enterprise risk management for a Swiss international stock exchange listed company for 12, 13 years. And also at the same time, board secretary or corporate secretary, as some of you would say. So in a sense, I have these different hats, and so I was there in the board, shaping the agenda. But on the other side, I was also there every now and again with my ERM hat on, and I could see what did and did not work. I left my company about 3 years ago, and ever since I've done, a lot of speaking. Also, I'm on my own. I founded a company called Vitruvia Governance Architects, and I'm also and have been for the past 2 years on a judging panel for startup companies in the sustainable food and sustainability sector, which was also very interesting because there you can see actually very small, sometimes even pre-financing outfits, and you can even there already see which ones have the seeds in them to continue, which is why I'm very happy and again glad to be part of this talk on basically what boards and founders, etc., can learn from each other. Thank you, Vilma.
Thank you, Annette. And so we will start this sort of like conversation, from the question why good decisions become harder as organizations grow. If you guys have your own answers, please share in the chat. We would be glad to see them. And I have my answer that complexity grows, and introducing the structure, we kind of like breaking a little bit this whole picture apart. So this is my answer, like short, but we will dive deeper. But Annette, what do you think? Why those decisions become harder when organizations grow?
So I think you're absolutely right that it is the complexity that grows. It is also the attention that grows and the expectations from all sorts of shareholders that grow. And also, at first you might just be, between the 2, 3, 4 founders or so, and you're basically all very close together and very close to whatever the project is. And the more you develop, the more you can actually also get away from the actual kernel of the project. And then it's a bit like with science. At the age of the Enlightenment, you could still be, a universal scientist. The more you do, the more time went on, the more you had to specialize, and then you do not know everything about every area anymore. And this is also usually what happens little by little in a company, in an enterprise when it grows, and that makes, of course, then
Yeah,
decision making
that
more
makes
difficult.
sense. And I think that now I will share the slide that I prepared for this talk, and will try to explain what I notice from looking from the founder's perspective. And uh, I think that the founder, as a such, gives this huge gift to the business that he or she sees the full picture from the beginning. And a couple of years ago, when I was working on business life cycle based risk maturity model on behalf of our national regulator, Bank of Lithuania, I went through the research of Copenhagen Business School, group of professors. They made a research on success factors for fintech community. And they mentioned that at very beginning, it is important networking, access to funding, team, and then the love to the customer. And the governance steps into only later, only in more mature significant impact of governance into mature stage. And the reason was clear that we all are equal at the beginning, and we do not need management support because the decisions are made there by the whole team. And this is exactly what happens at the very beginning. And this customer promise and the team energy and timing and founders are really fast in their decisions. I do not romanticize them. They are also making mistakes, and within the fintech sector, the mortality rate is very extremely high. It's 85% of companies do not reach maturity stage. But the founders have the speed. They see the whole picture. They go for experiments. They decide fast. They fail fast. They adjust fast, and they learn from this. And this is exactly what helps at very, very, very beginning. But then when the company grows and the complexity increases, of course, the founder, especially if there's like solo founder, it cannot manage alone anymore. It is the need for some structure to introduce control comes naturally. And what happens that introducing control kind of like I split this whole picture and layers for decision making and the shared responsibilities. They do not talk to each other. They kind of live in their separate boxes. And then there is a question of who is holding this the whole picture. And there possibly the governance, even the boards can help because in growing companies and in startups world, in tech companies, when founders need access to funding, to raise the capital, to involve more stakeholders, they need also some support, and boards also step in quite early stages sometimes. And I see that boards can keep asking the right questions. First of all, what part of reality is missing in this or another decision? Not not tolerating this fragmented view, but trying to help to keep this puzzle together and to keep the whole picture when company is growing. Another thing is level of certainty. Decisions are made with bigger or lower level of uncertainty. And the another question that I see that boards can ask and support founders and then the team, what level of certainty is, what we are assuming, what we're relying on, and how we can know early that our assumptions are wrong. Because when the company is small, this founder's energy, let's go for experiments, it can translate into early warning signals. And the nature, the mode of experimenting and innovating still be kept in a safer settings if we hear the signals. And this is tricky part about this shared responsibility. How to share responsibility without splitting the company into parts. And I think that the questions that naturally are not important at very beginning because the team is small and it is clear who is making decisions. It's either founder or just like a sitting around the table, those 3 or 5 or whatever people, and they are making decisions together. But when company grows, it is important to kind of like keep this understanding who is making decision and who will experience the outcome of this decision. And I attribute this to founders' gift also, that could be safeguarded and nourished in later stages, maybe even with the help of boards, of smart boards. And finally, the third part, that governance. I mean, I think that it's not just think. I know, talking with founders, that sometimes they hesitate to introducing the board, to introducing more complex governance, because they are afraid of losing this wholeness from one side, and from another side they kind of associate governance with multiple layers of hierarchy, with long decision approval flow. And this fear also holds them back from stepping into different governance approach. And this will be the exactly question and topic for Annette to elaborate deeper. What does it mean, the modern governance? But I just want to mention a few other myths that also, or mindset traps we can call, that holds from structuring the governance, and then from critically assessing what model of decision making is the best for the company in one or another stage of their life cycle. So those mainstream traps, I chose, there are more, but I chose the three, the most important. One is that documented does not mean understood. And when company is introducing like more structure, when complexity grows, and when they start to document every single step and procedure, and produce documentation for regulatory, for compliance sake, without even connecting it with business processes, with natural processes, we have like piles and piles of documentation, but it does not change the way we are working, and even introduce even more complexity into the company. Another thing, which is also very important to keep in mind, that reported does not mean managed. And again, flooding with reports and then following all possible figures. It is important to have data, understand me correctly, but it is much better to choose like 2, 3 key indicators and connect the signals, how we can early know that it's not working, how we can adjust our decision, to be fast in deciding, to be cautious in monitoring, and to be flexible in adjusting if it's not working, if it's not beneficial for the company. And of course, assigned who is responsible. And take you from me this responsibility, but it does not mean that that ownership is passed by, because without understanding and without owning, we cannot pass the ownership. And I think that talking from the founder's perspective, those things are important, and it is even more important to safeguard the founder's energy and to help the founder to keep the company as a whole. And if founders would would trust that introducing more complex governance, it would help them to keep the whole picture and to keep this awareness in the company and have better decisions, better informed decisions. I think that they would go for innovating decision-making models and even organizational models in earlier stages of the development. So what do you think, Annette, about this. I will stop for a while sharing and.
Well, I think you could even have had it. I think the first of all, thank you. I think it's very important what you said, that you start with something and then you continue, and governance is important. So you started by talking about this approach that you heard from the University of Copenhagen, saying that governance can come later. I might be a bit biased as a corporate governance expert, but I think that actually a good governance is actually something that might come from the outset. However, the question is, what does that look like? And we will later, no, don't share it yet, have a slide on, the what I call the 4 pillars, and they're not my own invention, but let's go there. But I think what is very, very important is that governance needs to be appropriate to the size of the company and also the maturity stage. Because even if you are still in the very first founder phase, you might have a fantastic idea, but already just trying to develop your product, pull it through, bring it to market. If there's something new, you might have to do something like a search for IP or patents or something. Well, you already usually cannot do everything at once. And that's also something I've seen, when I've now looked at, with Must Challenge, at probably close to 100 candidate small startups. And you can see when there is somebody who is very much concentrated on one person or perhaps 2 people, that's usually a bit difficult, because you can then see, well, where's all the competence you need to actually get from having a fantastic idea to having a product or a service that works, and then actually a viable company. That actually already requires usually more than 2-3 people only. And there is actually where governance starts, because governance is actually, how do you organize your enterprise, your idea? How do you organize the relationships between the people? And governance, nowadays is said to be, oh, yeah, you need processes, procedures everywhere, and it's very difficult, lots of red tape. That's not what governance, a good governance, is, in my view. But it is something that you need to be clear who's doing what and why, and who's taking decisions, and who is, where the buck stops, to use the American idiom, and also who is taking the final decisions. So that's very important. And I think it gets more and more important as outside capital comes in, because whether it's the bank loan or, which probably most people won't get at that stage, or whether it's anybody like an accelerator or a Series A financing or angel investor or whatever, they usually want to understand a bit about what they're putting their money in and how it is going to work. And so this is why you need, as soon as you have external investors, a certain governance maturity. And if you haven't started with something, even informal, before, you might get hit hard when then all of a sudden these people come in, and they might just actually then force you into something which might not work for you. So it's much better for a smaller company to have started saying, no, we do these things our way. This is how we take this decision. This is how we take finance decision. This is how we're doing our go to market or something. So this is how it works. And then actually it can evolve. And what is also very important is the flow of information, because you have then, especially once you have, say, angel investors or somebody else in, you have them and you have yourself, and you have to deal with something as a young enterprise, and sometimes for the first time with a fairly and growing number of stakeholders. And this is where then actually, and now you can, you have shared the slide, kind of governance comes in. And, fair disclosure, this is not, I didn't think this up. I mean, it's not that is so difficult for anything. It comes from the IMD course that I took at some point. It's a very good course. I'm not being paid by them for anything, but I'm happy to recommend it. It's the board director diploma, and this is one of the main professors there, who has published a book which is now at least in its second edition, and maybe on its third now, but when I was there, it was the second edition, who just said, well, what do we need for excellent governance? He said governance excellence. For me, it's just good governance, which actually then helps in the decision-making quality. And what you can see is, you need an effective board. And for a board to be effective, you basically have those four pillars. And they look a bit like, motherhood and apple pie, because they are. I mean, there is no magic here in a sense. You need people, you need information, you need structures, processes, and you need your values and your culture. And to me, actually, the people and the values, the two outer structures, they're there, to really keep everything up. They are the most important in my mind, because when you have the right people there, and it is the right people for the right moment, then you can actually do everything else. And you can sometimes be lighter on the rest. So people, what you need is people who have the quality you require. So they need to have the right knowledge, but they also need to be diverse. And especially when you look at young companies, you usually start out with some advisor type board before you have a proper board of directors. And you need to have people who, as you say, help you keep reality and decision connected. And they also need to be the ones that challenge you. And they have to challenge you from diverse angles. So you need a certain diversity. You may want people that are a bit more, interested in finances. You might people who know how it's actually been done, who have been through their own startups or something. You may need people who know how production of your product, if it's a product that you want, works, etc. What is at least as important as the quality is actually their focus and the dedication. Because especially once you're a small company that gets bigger and you have to take decisions on financing and then come the different rounds, etc., you need people who you can actually call and who will have the time for you. So they need to show enough engagement, and they need to be able to have a certain time commitment. And sometimes it's actually better, when you look at who could be my advisors, my board members, not to look at the most, notable name, but to look at people who actually can put the time in. That is very important. And then comes what you already said with the information. At some point, you need an information architecture. And architecture sounds very, very grandiose, but actually you need to know, what information do you need for a company coming internally? And this will be, in the founding stage, still fairly easy because you only have a couple of people internally. But still, this information still needs to get exchanged, especially once you have to start to diversify a bit more or to specialize a bit more. The finance guy needs to talk to the development guy, needs to talk to the marketing person, etc. What is even more important is what information is there from external sources. Because if you're a young company, you might enterprise, you're entering a market that hasn't necessarily been waiting for you. So you need to know what's out there, and you need to have a way of ensuring that information comes into you and comes also into your board then. Of course, this architecture can be formal and informal. I won't talk too much about it because I think it's fairly self-explanatory. However, I would like to say that especially in the early stages, informal is usually what you should start with. But even once you get to the more formal information architecture, you should never discount or forget about the more informal architecture. So you should have, quote unquote, back channels back to between the founders and the board members that they can call even outside a board meeting if they just have a question or something, saying, "Oh, I need this information," etc. Let me come first to the last pillar there: governance, culture, and values. Which I think is very important both for a company and also for their board. And especially in a young enterprise, the board needs to be really attuned to the founders, because they're the ones who actually came up with that idea, and they're the ones putting everything together, but they need help what I can see sometimes is that boards step in, especially when when financing starts and when there are people being put in from a PE fund or something. They try to just steamroll everything, and that is something that you have to resist. And it's really the lived culture that you need. What are the dynamics? What's the dynamics within the board, and also, the discussion style, the relationship with the founders. That is extremely important, and that you need to look out for. And this is not something that is, you can actually write down somewhere. This is something you need to really live. You also need some document culture at some point, although again, start with the lived one, but then also start, especially once you have a board in a young enterprise. What's the purpose? What are they doing? What should be their values? And they should obviously be aligned with the values of the entire enterprise. And what should also be behaviors that are, on the one hand, requested, but also on the other hand, what would be unacceptable. And once you have all this, then we can come actually to the third pillar, to the structure and processes, which, again, as you showed on your slide before, Vilma, is something that will change actually with the maturity. A board needs to be part of the key processes, especially strategy, risk, and there might be also crisis. At some point also succession, although this is more in a later state. But then at some point you will need more operational processes like meetings, evaluation, etc. But this is at a later stage, I would say. And this can also be fairly informal. But what you need certainly in a young enterprise, you need to understand how the board is helping you with the strategy and with your risk. Because the strategy, you as the founder, a founder, they know where they want to go, but they may not know all the risks. So the question is, how much should a board get involved in setting the strategy? Should they only challenge to, as you said, ensure that, the sensing is kept alive and there's no dissociation between reality and decisions? Or should they also get a bit more involved? And this will depend on the maturity of the founders' ideas, their own maturity, the market, etc. But this is actually something that is the board, governance. And this is what, when we come back to the first question you asked, what can boards and founders learn from each other in terms of decision making? I think these are pillars that you want to have at some point in your board and in your company to ensure or to set the stage for good decision making. And if we, bring this back now to the area of risk management where we came from, actually, to exemplify how this should be done. And actually, if I may make slight marketing for myself, I've just written an article in a magazine of the University of St. Gallen about how to ensure or what you can do to allow for meaningful risk discussions at the board level. What you can do is actually, you have to start by seeing, the risk management. Why do we do risk management? Is it really, because you have to do it or something, or to, because we are afraid? That's not something that a founder will want to hear, because they are there with their idea, they want to go forward. And so it must be very clear to everybody concerned that risk discussions, risk management are there to help to increase the quality of decision making, so that it can be a helpful tool for the entrepreneur. So if you do, sometimes it's called a pre-mortem or something, you think, okay, if that hadn't worked out, why would it have failed? Then you can see where, some weak points might be of your processes, of your idea, of the competencies you have. And then you can actually take action before something happens. And that also helps then, to balance out, the young founder, the entrepreneur. They want, and of course they need to emphasize the upsides. They have their vision and they need, they want to see what could go right. And that's absolutely essential, that they are gung-ho. They say, no, we absolutely believe in our idea, whatever it is. And then actually risk management must keep that in mind, while also then helping them, by adding a realistic view of what could go wrong, and then saying, okay, and how to avoid stuff going wrong. And so then they can actually come into their idea, eyes wide open, and that helps them. So because in a sense, risk, by its own, the word risk doesn't mean negative. So it does have a negative connotation in everyday speech. But if you go kind of to the literature, it only means uncertainty. And you spoke about uncertainty before, Vilma. So it can be a threat or also opportunities, because, risk can also, oh, have you thought you could even go farther here or something? So that is, very good. And then actually, looking at the four pillars. So you need the right people in the room, and the people in the room need to be able to do.
It seems that Annette stuck a little bit. So while she be back, I will take from that point that actually the good governance is not about replacing the entrepreneurial instinct. It is about maturing it. And for me, risk maturity, I see it in a very practical way. Uh, Risk maturity is ability to keep risk connected with strategy, with reality, and decisions as complexity grows. And I believe that this should be kind of like understanding why do we need one or another structure to support our governance. And from my perspective, I think that talking with the boards and with bigger companies, with management teams, it is important to remember, especially when founders are already stepping away a little bit from business, that the founder's gift is not only the speed. The founder's gift is living connection between ambition, between the purpose, reality, and action. And I would love to hear your insights on this topic because it was the idea that it is conversation. It's not just a monologue. So maybe you have questions or you want to share what do you think about how those decisions become harder when organizations grow. Anyone?
Sorry about it,
Yeah,
but I got lost somehow. So
it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. We kind of like wrapped and now kind of waiting for comments or questions
very good.
if anyone has.
Yeah, I just
Um,
wanted to say, so the only thing I wanted to say is, especially in risk discussions, they have to be pragmatic. So you don't want, for instance, for a geopolitical risk, if there is some, you don't want to somebody, just giving you a lecture on what could or could not happen. You want the so what of the company, for the company, for the young enterprise. But thank you, and apologies for this. So that was my own risk. I thought I had set myself up properly, but apparently I haven't.
oh, it's okay, and things that happens as they
Yeah.
happen, and
Hugh has a question.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
Hi
go
there.
on.
Hello, everyone from very hot south of France, burning in places, luckily not yet where I live. But Annette, I would like to ask you, how do you deal in this startup phase with individuals who very often have very strong personalities, and therefore people are afraid to contradict them or to throw things into the arena, which those people would not like to hear. How do you deal with those human dynamics?
That's an extremely good question, and it's a very difficult one because, as you say, a founder has to have a strong will, because if not, they might not, go on with their idea. Um, in one word, it's diplomacy, but also you need to have somebody who is experienced in dealing with founders and telling them, look, we are all behind your idea. Let's just try to see what is the best way of getting there. So, for instance, at Mass Challenge, this accelerator where I'm sitting on the judging panels, we're giving them advice on that. So they get, if they get into the program, they're actually getting, they're being educated about all this and also how to actually deal with a board. But I think it's very important to have a good quote unquote chair. I mean, it might not be so formal in the beginning, but to have them also understand their role in the beginning more as advisors, because that's always a problem that boards in general can become too operational, and especially in a startup phase when there is so much that the founders don't know yet. And so you have to be really careful, when you choose your board, but also as a board member in a startup board, that you are there to advise, you are there to also challenge, but you're not there to take a decision in the stead of the founder. But it's the most difficult one because yes, it's a specific type of person who goes in for making or founding their own company, and they usually don't like to hear too much. So you have to be steadfast. You have to come back from different angles, and it's usually by questions, a bit like the question Vilma had on her slide. It's like, what might we be missing? I mean, what could help us? What information could help us, etc. So coming with these questions, and then it is the founder's show. It changes usually when finance comes in, when external financiers come in, and then that's usually when when clashes occur. And I'm, for instance, currently in a process for a role as a chair of a company where exactly that happens, when now the founders are, let's put it this way, in need of somebody who might help them be more conciliatory. But yes, you have to choose the right person, especially for those early boards. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Annette. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for a good question and for a great answer. And before we wrap up, I just want to share one more important thing, that with those summer talks, I also opened registration for Risk Workout 2026 autumn season, and this is extremely practical space for risk professionals and business leaders to reconnect risk with decisions, ownership, and accountability. And I dropped in the chat the link, and you are most welcome to look to agenda. And if you want to know more, you always can book a call with me. And who knows, maybe our conversation will continue in this program. And for the summer talks, thank you all for joining, for being here. I hope that you found something for yourself listening to Annette and myself. And the next talk will be at the end of July. It will be about unspoken risks, hidden resources, and resilience. And in the beginning of August, together with another partners, Kopla, we will talk about vendors and strategic dependencies. More to come, and I hope that I will see you there. So now I think that the time flew, and if you have one last question, somebody, we still have 1 minute left, but this is everything we wanted to share with you today.
And if you have any more questions that you haven't been asking, please feel free to connect on LinkedIn. And I'll be happy to also answer further questions.
Yeah, and Annette is also joining Risk Workout, very first module, which is dedicated to strategic integrity. So for those who are thinking about participating in it, it is also the good connection to follow. Okay, thank you for being here and have nice remaining day and see you in next summer talks on LinkedIn and maybe for a cup of coffee. Thank you.
Thank you very much also.